Well, okay, guys, what we're going to be talking about today, I'm not too surprised whatsoever when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy, when it comes to Star Wars, what Disney has done with Star Wars. I'm not surprised at all. And you guys really shouldn't be surprised too. Former Walt Disney World Vice President Dan Cockrell actually told us the truth about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was not supposed to be based off of Batu, Bantu, whatever it is called right now. It wasn't originally thought of that way. It wasn't planned that way. And we heard that Bob Iger actually was looking at the dailies from The Force Awakens and decided, hey, let's make this something with the sequel trilogy. Now, Dan Cockrell actually gives way more details on this. Way more details. And in a surprise to me, he revealed that Kathleen Kennedy was the architect of not making the Star Wars lands, which would become Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It was supposed to be based off of Tatooine. Tatooine, something that everyone can resonate with Star Wars. And it was her idea to basically destroy that plan because she wanted to focus on the sequels and the future of Star Wars. Now, to me, I have no problem with, making a theme park based off of future movies. But however, since they actually disrespected the past, I don't think a lot of people are really interested in this new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on a planet that nobody had even heard of. I mean, Batu wasn't even featured in the movies. Maybe it's in some other canon. I really couldn't tell you. But Kathleen Kennedy, her first major failure was acting a theme park based off of Tatooine. And when you're thinking of Star Wars, why would you want to go to a theme park based on a planet that nobody's heard of, that's never been featured in a movie, and you would ask that over Tatooine, which everyone that's a Star Wars fan knows about? It's just me. But Cockrell says this. He says, we had just purchased Lucasfilm, and it started to become the talk about, okay, if we're going to bring that to life, where are we going to do that? And Hollywood Studios ended up being the place because that's where it seemed the best fit, and it was the part that needed an update the most and to replace some of the experiences. So he says this. So we worked on that project for a couple of years, 2 years then. There were artists. We were looking at layouts of the park. You just get a big aerial view and you get a big magic marker and you start saying, what if this was here? And what if this was there? So they were planning on this for a whole 2 years. A whole 2 years, because they bought Lucasfilm in 2012. Force Awakens didn't come out until, I believe, late 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. And then the hammer drops, okay? The hammer drops. And this is a couple of years later. After all of this planning, he says this. They said, well, yesterday, Bob Iger met with Kathleen Kennedy, who, as a lot of people may know, was sort of George Lucas's protege and headed up Lucasfilm. And they had a conversation. They had a meeting. And Kathleen Kennedy, her point of view was, there are way more Disney Star Wars stories ahead of us than behind us. Of course, she would say something like that. But he continued on. So we really should think about, do we want to build a Tatooine and build what all the 50-somethings remember Star Wars is? Or do we want to build something else which is going to appeal to all the upcoming generations who are going to know the new stories? I'm going to stop right there, okay? That's the problem with Kathleen Kennedy. She doesn't want to respect the past. Right from the get-go, she had no plans to respect the past at all. None whatsoever. If Kathleen Kennedy actually respected the past, I think us in the Star Wars community as fans would probably embrace the newer stuff a little bit more, even though they're not good movies. And I think a lot of the problem is too much to do with identity politics and destroying all of the past. George Lucas was lied to when Kathleen Kennedy gave that interview with him. We're going to take what you gave us and we're going to make sure they're protected and they're respected and all that other stuff she was saying. It was all a complete lie. So it was her idea to destroy Star Wars Galaxy's Edge from being Tatooine into what we got today. And the Imagineers, they were not happy about this. Okay? So Cockrell then stated, and that day Tatooine was killed at the studios and all of the concepts were put on a shelf. And I'm sure they are sitting in a vault. And I'm sure they're going to be shown someday about what that land looked like and what the attractions were going to be. He then detailed how he and his team reacted to the news. The Imagineering team, we got off the phone and I said, "Can you guys believe this?" And they said, "This is terrible. We've been working on this." They weren't even on board with this. They said this is terrible because all of their hard work that they put in for 2 years was thrown out the door because Kathleen Kennedy wanted this to be something else. Doesn't it sound pretty similar to the way that she has been getting rid of directors and creative minds? You know, she hires these people. They come in, they lay out their project, they hire other people, they start writing the scripts. Sometimes they even actually start filming. And then she says, "Oh no, this isn't what I want to do. You're fired." Very, very similar here, in my opinion, if you ask me. And we know that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge got off to a very, very rocky start. And of course, now the theme parks are closed right now. So this pandemic isn't doing Disney Star Wars any favors whatsoever. And if you actually think that it's going to increase over time, it's going to take a very, very long time for them to recoup the money that they actually put into these parts. Just look at the profits of the movies. You get from The Force Awakens, $2 billion. And now you get down to The Rise of Palpatine, which ends up becoming the lowest grossing of the Disney Star Wars movies when it comes to the saga movies. It went out with a whimper. The reviews are bad. Nobody cares about this. And this just shows you how Kathleen Kennedy needs to go. Why is she still in place? This was a horrible decision. Horrible. She's talking about, you know, there's going to be more Star Wars in the future. Yeah. So what? Quality over quantity. Think of this. The original Star Wars movie came out 1977, 43 years ago. People still talk about that movie more than they talk about any of these Disney Star Wars movies. For one thing, that movie is light years better than all of the movies Disney has given us. So for Kathleen Kennedy to say that there's going to be way more Disney Star Wars movies in the future, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if you can't put out good quality products on the screen. The bread and butter of Star Wars is the movies. Now, George Lucas, he understood that. I know people kind of bash George for the prequels, but the prequels at least has some continuity. What Disney has given us has been a complete hot mess. I mean, I can't think of a trilogy of movies that have been this bad. No consistency whatsoever. It's been a complete disaster. So Cockrell laid it out there. Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not saying she's 100% to blame, but they were looking at her like she was actually George Lucas's protege. I don't think she was really George Lucas's protege because originally she wasn't even given a job by George Lucas until Bob Iger told George he couldn't have creative control. So to me, George just put her in there to be a figurehead, and he thought he can actually influence her so he can get his way, and it didn't work out like that. Because does anybody really think that George Lucas would have made these movies like Disney did? No way in the world. He actually slammed The Force Awakens. And I'm pretty sure he hated The Last Jedi. We haven't even heard about what he said about The Rise of Palpatine. So we know that he was pretty pissed off about Palpatine coming back. This is just another failure of Disney Star Wars again. This probably actually really started the mess that we got. But I'm not surprised. I mean, check out down in the comments for this article. It's pretty long and there's a lot more details in it. But this video will probably be like 20 minutes long and I want it to be 20 minutes. So guys, what do you think of this? Kathleen Kennedy destroying Star Wars Galaxy's Edge because she wanted to focus on the sequels and the upcoming movies. And we haven't even got a movie with a planet Batu in it anyway. We haven't. So I don't even get how this really relates to the sequels per se, but oh well. But anyway, guys, that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Kathleen Kennedy destroying Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Not a surprise because she wants to let the past die, kill it if you have to, destroy everything George has worked for over these 43 years. So guys, let me know what you think about all this in the comments. If you're new here to the channel, please hit subscribe to catch future videos from me, and we will catch you on the next video. John Matrixx, out.